Shelter services for migrants, an inside look at facilities in Tucson and Nogales, Sonora.
We have the urgency of the children and families who are coming through.
Sitting down with the head of Arizona's Department of Homeland Security, the challenges he sees facing the state.
Cybersecurity is something that everybody is faced with.
Plus, what early census results reveal about growth in Arizona.
Now, the population growth was seemingly overestimated.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thanks so much for joining us. In a matter of days, unaccompanied children apprehended at the Arizona border will begin arriving in Tucson at a temporary processing center. The facility is located in unincorporated Pima County, just east of the Tucson International Airport. This week, Customs and Border Protection hosted an open house to allow members of the public to see the center. Along Los Reales Road, large white tents dot the skyline. Inside the green gates, Customs and Border Protection officers and agents are working alongside contract workers, readying for the hundreds of migrants, mostly children, who cross the border without a parent.
Tucson sectors experienced about a 100% increase over last fiscal year in the number of unaccompanied children that we're apprehending that are crossing the border. You know, everyone's seeing there's this migration surge across the southwest border, which is really putting a lot of strain on the resources that exist.
That's John Maudlin, the interim chief of the Tucson Sector Border Patrol. He and his team hosted an open house this week. Among the attendees, representatives from the Mexican consulate, non-governmental organizations, and the media.
Our facilities, if you were to be inside them, you would see it's basically small holding cells. They're made to hold people for short periods of time. There's cement benches in there, cement floors. They're not made for children. Moreover, Border Patrol agents are not trained to care and detain children. It's something we're just not built for. We're not trained for it. So we asked for a soft-sided facility to be put up here.
The tour began at intake, where migrants will answer questions and submit information about how they got here. There's a medical room to assess a person's needs. These racks will hold personal belongings. Every room and hallway under close surveillance.
We're going to enter our first pod system that we have here. It's, you could probably call it a housing unit.
Down this hallway, we saw the housing units, pods that can sleep up to 16. Though this facility has a maximum capacity of 500, it's estimated only 200 to 250 will be here on a given day. The agency has to manage physical distancing guidelines as well as existing litigation dictating the conditions inside centers like this one. Who goes where will vary. A mother with young children, for example, may be in a unit together with other women and children. Siblings, depending on their age, may be separated but near each other. To manage health and safety, each pod is separated by plastic. Up on these stands, agents and contract workers will oversee the space. Per federal law, stays here should be less than 72 hours, but it's a careful balance of ensuring federal agencies are able to handle the flow of people in the system. Our tour visits the Outdoor Recreation Center. Contractors erected this entire facility in 20 days at a cost of more than $30 million. It's equipped with laundry and shower facilities and a multi-purpose room. Migrants will also have access to private phone booths. The last stop is through Uptick, a collaborative effort, Border Patrol says, between the federal government and non-governmental agencies working to place migrants with families or sponsors in the U.S. until a court date is secured, a schedule that in some cases takes years. Before we left, we spoke with Juanita Molina from the Border Action Network.
You know, I think it's much better than some of the other facilities that we've seen. And the reality is that we've seen stopgap measures that have been woefully inadequate. We've seen situations that could really perpetuate injury in a vulnerable population. And so I'm glad to see this happen in a more fulfilling way. You know, it's an incredibly complex issue that we're seeing here on the border. We have the urgency of the children and families who are coming through, and we want to be able to process them as quickly as possible. And yet at the same time, even though we've known this as a government for over the last 12, 15 years, that our demographic has changed, we still have not adjusted our governmental systems. And so here we see Border Patrol making a valiant effort to try to accommodate this particular instance, but at the same time, it's difficult because it's not adequate for the needs of the children that are coming through.
Across the border, nonprofits and religious organizations continue to support asylum seekers who have waited months for the opportunity to present their cases in the U.S. Tony Paniagua traveled to Nogales, Sonora, where he visited a shelter providing aid and spoke to migrants about their journeys.
A few miles southeast of the U.S.-Mexico border, on an expansive hilltop property of about 2 acres, a binational alliance is providing refuge and hope for hundreds of migrants. Each has their own unique story, including 21-year-old Abigail, who asked that we not show her face or use her full name. She and her husband have a baby and a 5-year-old. Last year, the family fled the state of Guerrero on Mexico's Pacific coast.
Muchas muertes, matanzas, asaltos.
Deaths, killings, assaults, extortions, and delinquency due to organized criminal groups. It has gotten too dangerous for the average person, and our biggest wish is to protect our family and to live in a more secure environment.
Más que nada proteger a mi familia, protegerme a mí, mis hijas, y pues vivir seguros.
They are seeking political asylum in the United States, where they hope to reunite with Abigail's mother, who migrated to the U.S. 15 years ago. Her undocumented status has prevented her from traveling to Mexico to see Abigail or other relatives since then.
Si Dios quiere, llegar con mi mamá.
God willing, we will be able to arrive at my mother's house. She is anxious to see us and help us, and I dream of reuniting with her. It will be like getting to know her all over again.
Abigail's family is staying at La Casa de Misericordia y Todas las Naciones, the House of Mercy and All Nations in Nogales, Sonora. For several years, squatters lived at the former community center. But Sister Angelica Alma Macias and a binational group of supporters purchased the property last year. They opened La Casa, and word soon spread, especially as other shelters were shutting down due to the pandemic. Sister Lica, as she is affectionately called, is from central Mexico, but has been helping people in this border region for decades.
Nadie de los que ha pasado por aquí ha sido por gusto.
Not one person that has been here has told me that he or she is embarking on this journey out of pleasure or because they just want to live somewhere else. They are desperate. I met a 14-year-old Mexican boy whose father and uncle had been shot and killed, and the criminals made him pick up the bodies and move them away. The suffering is constant.
Services at La Casa include 3 meals a day, places to sleep and shower, and education for the children. Much of the work gets done by the migrants themselves, including plumbing projects, an outdoor cooking area where special events are also held, and a thriving garden. La Casa is supported by Cruzando Fronteras, or Crossing Borders. Cruzando Fronteras gets donations from members of the United Church of Christ, Lutherans, Episcopalians, and other groups in Arizona. Reverend Randy Meyer leads the Good Shepherd Church in Sahuarita, south of Tucson.
From our faith perspective, we really see that these are our sisters and brothers, and they may be across a human-made border, but really in the bigger scheme of things, they're really part of humanity. They're part of our churches, and we need to love them and take care of them.
Maria is in her 50s and sold her own home and property in Guatemala for about $15,000 so she could pay for her family's trip north. She's traveling with her 12-year-old son, 23-year-old daughter, and her daughter's 2 children. They want to get to Virginia. Maria has a friend there who is willing to take in the family until they get established in the States.
Pasé muchas dificultades en el camino.
I faced many difficulties in my journey. For 6 days, I experienced humiliation, contempt, rejection, discrimination, and theft. We were often scared and hungry and thirsty on the 6-day bus ride up here, but it's better than what we faced in Guatemala. We had to take a chance.
Abigail and Maria's families both arrived at the border last year when former President Trump's Migrant Protection Protocols, or MPP, were in effect. It stipulated that those seeking political asylum do so while waiting in Mexico. That policy is no longer enforced. In February, the Biden administration rolled out a plan to begin processing people with active MPP cases, allowing them to await their immigration court dates in the U.S. Abigail and Maria's families are waiting to find out when they can finally be processed. They are praying it works out.
Presentar nuestro caso en migración.
Our main objective is to present our case to U.S. immigration. We've been waiting for months and will continue to wait because we want to do this the right way. It's too risky to enter through the desert illegally with our little girls, and even if we made it, we would have to live in fear again due to our undocumented status.
Yo he trabajado toda mi vida en Guatemala.
I have worked all of my life doing laundry, cleaning, ironing, and cooking to help out my family, and I keep asking God to grant me the opportunity to reach our destination where I will do it again. My main goal is to help my family.
It used to be a circular immigration pattern, and we've created these walls and these policies that almost lock people in.
Hacer vida el Evangelio es una cosa, leerlo, otra hacerlo vida. Unir la fe y la vida.
Making the gospel come to life. It's one thing to read it and another to put it into practice. That is my satisfaction, to do what I have to do. I can die tomorrow and ask myself, what did I do with my life that was worth it? That is my daily question. What did I do that was worthwhile?
For a deeper understanding of how policies enacted by the Trump administration and upheld by President Biden are shaping immigration trends, we turn to Elizabeth Oglesby for analysis. Oglesby researches human rights and Central America at the University of Arizona Center for Latin American Studies.
I think in many ways, what we're seeing is predictable because it's not that different from what we've seen in previous years. We always have seen a seasonal bump in the numbers of people crossing the border. We're seeing that again this spring. We're also seeing a bit of a backlog of people who were not able to cross during the pandemic, or people who were waiting in Mexico to make their asylum claims and were not able to under the Trump administration. So there is an increase in what would be a normal seasonal increase. Now, we also are seeing some changes that have a lot to do with the ways in which the Biden administration has kept in place some of the Trump administration policies.
Let's talk about that. Title 42 remains in place. The cap on refugees have as well. What will that do here over the next few months if, in fact, those policies remain in effect?
What Title 42 does is it allows the Border Patrol to simply expel people right away across the border back into Mexico without putting them into any proceedings at all. And so that has done a couple of things that has contributed to the higher numbers that we've been seeing the last few months. It means we're seeing more repeated border crossings, particularly by single adults. The other thing that Title 42 is doing is it is actually creating some of the phenomenon of the unaccompanied minors, because we have people who are on the Mexican side of the border, families with children who are not allowed to cross because they've been expelled back into Mexico under Title 42. And so what a lot of parents are doing is they're sending their children across the border because conditions in Mexico are so dangerous. They're so fraught for those families.
Some of the migrants have made the claim that they have heard that the immigration policies under President Biden will be different than they were under President Trump. And they have been told that now is a better time to attempt to come. And there are people who question that. What do you say to them?
This is not a border crisis. What it is a particular kind of humanitarian challenge. We have to remember that requesting asylum at the U.S. border is legal. That's how our laws function. Not everyone who requests asylum will obtain asylum because not everyone will have a strong case for asylum. But people do have the legal right to request asylum at our border. And we have the ability to manage this. This is not an unmanageable situation. But what we need to do is manage it like the humanitarian issue that it is.
Okay. Dr. Elizabeth Oglesby from the U of A Center for Latin American Studies. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Border security is one of several priorities for the new head of Arizona's Department of Homeland Security. Tim Romer's duties include advising the governor on issues related to Homeland Security. Governor Ducey appointed Romer in early April. Before that, he worked for the CIA and in the Situation Room at the White House, and most recently served as Arizona's Chief Information Security Officer. At AZPM, I asked Romer about his views on some of Arizona's biggest security challenges, beginning with the border.
Going back to the 2018-2019 area, I saw firsthand how our nonprofit organizations were completely taxed on dealing with the surge from a humanitarian perspective, how law enforcement didn't have the resources they needed to be able to protect the border and protect the state from dangerous criminals and drugs and weapons coming in to the state. And that was a time that I didn't think it really could have gotten much worse than that. I can tell you right now that it 100% is worse than that.
What doesn't the average Arizonan who questions whether or not it is a crisis know about what's happening within the cartel structure and the smuggling of people? And, I know children is something that is getting the headlines at this point.
Yeah, people don't understand just how dangerous it is. You're having to pay a lot of money to the human smugglers and the cartels just to make it to the United States. A lot of times, sadly, these individuals don't have the money, upwards of $1,000 or more, to pay to get into the country. They are then in debt to these dangerous transnational criminal organizations. And so I don't think people understand that it's not this just walking across a border and everything is okay. It's such a dangerous journey. And then keep in mind the weather in Arizona. We're coming up on the hottest time of year, and it breaks your heart to think of these people risking their lives. And when you have such a big surge like this, a lot of times there aren't the resources to respond. I see these pictures of, 5, 6-year-old kids coming across the border alone where, that's what the average person doesn't understand is it can happen. And who rescues them? Who takes care of them? The National Guard is great force multipliers and helping assist in a wide variety of areas, and that includes the humanitarian perspective.
Cybersecurity is another area that is very near to you. As a matter of fact, I think you've brought it from your current role and you've kind of folded it into the Department of Homeland Security for the state. What is the threat facing Arizonans when it comes to cybersecurity?
Arizona isn't unique in this regard, in the fact that we're very unique in the aspect of we were just talking about border security. 375 miles of border with Mexico. A lot of states around the country don't understand that public safety threat. Cybersecurity is something that everybody is faced with around the world and around the country. It is all day, every day. We have a variety of threat actors coming after us, from nation states to criminals and even hacktivists. Cybersecurity was really important prior to the pandemic. After the pandemic and during the pandemic, even more important. And why is that? It's because we have put so much of our lifestyle, our entire economy, on the backbone of technology.
We live in a digital world. People are chasing modernism no matter the cost. What do you say to them about the best ways to protect themselves?
Keep it simple. Don't fall into this trap that cybersecurity is such an overly complex issue that you'll never be able to understand it or that you'll never be able to protect yourself. I've had a lot of people tell me that, I don't understand cybersecurity. It's too complex. If somebody's going to come after me, they're going to get me. I can't defend myself from this. The truth is you absolutely can, but it starts really simple. Password protection. Using strong passwords, not using the same password for everything. That way, when something gets compromised, you don't want your Netflix account to get compromised and then have your work or your bank account compromised because you use the same password. Be careful what you put about yourself on social media. We've seen some of the largest hacks in the world go back to something called social engineering. Criminals use the information that's out there about yourself. They use it to guess your passwords or guess your security questions to get into your accounts. And just have good basic, we call it cybersecurity hygiene. Be careful about the websites that you visit as well. If you can take care of some of those simple things, within your organization, your cybersecurity experts are going to be able to better protect you with the tools needed that do get a little bit more sophisticated.
You also have children in sharp focus. You want to get into the schools. Why is that?
Well, I think when it comes to public safety, being a father of 2 in public school in Arizona, it obviously plays a huge part in what keeps you up at night. I've seen firsthand the school districts are at a huge disadvantage. A lot of them don't have the resources they need to defend themselves. They're a huge target. So we saw Flagstaff Unified School District about 2 years ago got hit with ransomware. They lost 2 days of school just because of that. And that could be only the beginning. So we use that as an example to reach out to our school districts around the state and say, hey, we're here to help from the state of Arizona. We can get you grant funding. And we started a grant fund process to help them get awareness training, phishing training, advanced endpoint protection, all this cyber stuff. We're now getting to them free of charge, and we can also consult with them.
You are just a couple weeks into the job. What is one of your immediate goals in this new role?
Immediate goals is just kind of getting back to the border physically and meeting with our border sheriffs and law enforcement, faith-based nonprofit organizations. And then also making sure we have a smooth transition of merging two teams, the current Department of Homeland Security that we talked about and the cyber team. And then also what's on my mind strategically right now is the Super Bowl is coming to Arizona next year. Let's make sure that we've learned from this in the past on best practices. Let's make sure we protect big events. My team and I are definitely thinking about those types of things and being proactive of getting prepared. So there's just a few of the priorities that keep me up at night.
All right, Director Romer, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Early numbers from the 2020 census are in. As expected, Arizona's population grew over the last decade. For a breakdown, we turn to Arizona Public Media's political reporter, Christopher Conover.
The numbers they gave out this week are just the preliminary numbers. We have to wait a little while to get some real depth on it. But what we do know is that Arizona grew by about 12%, or about 760,000 people since the last census 10 years ago.
Many people who have been watching and waiting for this to happen expected that Arizona would have shown tremendous gains. For example, employment is up, wage growth has increased voter registration over the last 10 years, but it wasn't quite what was expected to be revealed in the census.
Overall, the census numbers were lower nationwide than a lot of people expected. The census growth for the entire country was about 7.4%. The only time it's been lower than that was the 1940 census, when it was 7.3%. A couple of things played into this. The obvious one was the COVID pandemic. The census couldn't get out the way it normally does to community events, to get people signed in, to go door to door the same way. So there was definitely a loss there.
Arizona did not gain that 10th congressional seat as many had expected. What does that mean as we move into another election year, of course, but also redistricting will take place either way?
The redistricting commission still has work to do because the 9 districts that Arizona will keep still have to be redrawn based on population. This year, according to the census, each seat in the U.S. House, the 435, will represent about 760,000 people. So those districts have to be redrawn. How much they'll be redrawn, that we don't know. And part of that we have to wait because the census has not released anything other than the statewide numbers and won't for a few more months. And that will be something that's interesting to see. And it plays in more than just politics of seats in Congress, because there are a lot of formulas the federal government uses for funding and the state uses for funding that are based on population.
And let's talk about that. Fewer federal dollars translates into fewer services here in the state of Arizona.
Potentially, yes. And that is why the states always push for participation in the census. It's not just about seats in Congress. It's really about federal dollars at the end of the day. And budgets are always limited. Everybody always wants a piece of the budget. Arizona has about $1 billion in the rainy day fund, but you don't want to ever take that to zero in case there's a rainy day.
All right, Christopher Conover, political reporter at Arizona Public Media. Thank you. As mentioned, Arizona's early census results fell short of what some had expected. The focus now shifts to how that growth could shape future elections. We got analysis from University of Arizona political scientist Samara Klar. What caused this shift in Arizona that, many had anticipated? This is obviously a battleground state. It's a place to watch. And if you're a Politico, you're watching to see Arizona gain this seat, and it didn't. So what was happening behind the scenes, perhaps, that made this?
Many people are speculating that potentially it is, in fact, the Latino population of Arizona who may have been undercounted. There was a big controversy last year over adding a question about citizenship to the US Census. Many argued that by asking about citizenship status, a lot of families might feel as though the census was invasive. Maybe there was information that they did not want to reveal. Maybe they were not comfortable revealing their citizenship status. But what will really help us to understand that is when the census releases later this summer data on ethnic groups per state. And if we can see in the census data that the Hispanic and Latino community in Arizona seems to be undercounted, that might suggest that there was a systematic undercount, but it's just too early to say.
There is always the concern that the voices in large metropolitan communities, carry more weight. Will that be the case as we look into the next few years, given what the census has revealed early on?
I think this is a real ongoing debate sort of in American politics. Who has more power, the people in the rural areas or the people in the urban areas? And you could really make an argument either way. Now, on one hand, urban areas have much larger concentration of people, a greater population. As a result, we tend to have more representation and probably more influence in government. On the other hand, others argue that people in rural areas are maybe overrepresented in government, given how few people live in rural areas. So if you think about it proportionally, I'm not sure it's necessarily the case that urban areas have more power. They certainly have more people. And this is a trend we are seeing in Arizona more than almost any other state in the country, where we really are seeing rural areas empty out, urban areas fill up. In fact, in 2020, the counties in Arizona where Trump improved over his 2016 returns were the counties that either lost population or stayed stable. The counties where Biden improved over Clinton's performance in 2016 were the counties where the population really grew a lot.
Is Arizona still considered that battleground that will be much sought after in the elections that are coming our way?
Absolutely. I was just going through with my students some data on which specific cities received the most money for television ads in the presidential campaign, and Phoenix was #1 in the ranking that we were looking at in the entire country. So many of us in Arizona felt, I think for the first time really, a huge influx of flyers and door knockers and TV ads, and that was with the pandemic going on. So cross your fingers, 2024, no pandemic, more in-person contact. I think we can expect to really be the target of a lot of political campaigning.
All right. Political science professor Samara Clark from the University of Arizona. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. To get in touch, visit us on social media or send an email to arizona360@azpm.org and let us know what you think. We'll see you next week.